Hello, everyone. We are so happy to be at the guest house in Washington, D.C., our final stop of the RV trip. It has been a long, long journey, but we're really, really happy to start our trip off by speaking with Mr. Vernon Oakes. He is the first chair of Africana Studies at San Diego State University, and he also hosts a radio show here in the D.C. area, Everything Co-op. It's really good to be with you today.
Thank you. It's great to be here with you.
And also, we're happy to say this is also our fraternity brother. So just amazing to be able to call you my brother as well. I want to start off just with a light question, if you will, on the topic of voting. And with that, do you remember the first time you had the opportunity to vote?
Well, it's interesting. The first time I had the opportunity to vote, I did not vote. I was the president of the Young Democratic Club at Bluefield State College, where I got my undergrad. And that's where I also crossed the line. And the white Democrats would invite me to their meetings when they wanted my vote. And if they didn't need it, I wasn't able to go into the meetings. And I got that they knew before they took a vote what the response was going to be and what the outcome was going to be. And I just didn't want to have anything to do with that. So the first time I had a chance to vote, I did not. And also that year, Hubert Humphrey came to Bluefield to tour McDowell County and Mercer County. And I rode with him in a limousine. All he said was hi. So for an hour, 2 hours, I was in a limousine with this man who was terrible at communicating, or he didn't communicate with me, and I didn't have the wherewithal to strike up a conversation with him. We just sat there.
Right.
And we didn't have the phone, so we couldn't do that, which you all do today. Okay.
Well, were the windows down or up? At least
the windows were up.
Okay. Wow, that's even more.
The windows were up. The windows were up. So I was dismayed with the whole voting process. But my father, grandfather, mother, whenever it was a vote, it was a big commotion. Everybody got together and voted, went to the polls together and voted. So I grew up knowing that voting was important. But my experience at Bluefield State, being the president of the Young Democratic Club, it soured my taste of voting. And so I didn't vote, didn't believe my vote counted. And so when I talk to young folk today to say that, I totally get it. I totally understand.
So when did it switch?
I can't pinpoint the date that it switched, but it switched when I realized that every vote counts. And it may have been when somebody won with 10 votes, some precinct or something that happened, that how important every vote was, that it switched. I also had a chance. I had a chance to travel the world, pretty much first class. I was working for a company called Cummins Engine Company out of Indiana. And I had 4 people reporting to me, and I went around the world doing marketing studies. And one trip that I went to, I went to Mexico City, then through Hawaii to Singapore, Bangkok, Thailand, dropped down to Sydney and Melbourne, and then came back through Hawaii. On my trip back, I got a white guy that talked like, acted like he was a racist, redneck. So he ended up, he was asking me who was paying for your trip. My passport was full by then because I traveled so much. Why are you traveling so much? Drugs weren't as big back then. They were on the rise. So my thought was he think I was selling drugs and going around doing drug work. And so I was nonchalant. It was 5 o'clock in the morning. I was tired. I was being very nonchalant with him, and he told me he was going to do a strip search. So I ended up in a little room on a metal bench with my socks and underwear on.
Wow.
It was cold, and I was sitting in that room, and I thought of all of the people I'd seen around the world, whether it was in in the, and I used to like to walk around and see how people lived, but everywhere I had been and watched people, I concluded on that bench that I would rather be a Black American than most of the people that I had seen. Because with education, we could be born poor, maybe live poor, at least until we got to education, and after that we didn't have to live poor, and we definitely didn't have to die poor. And with voting, we had a say. We had a say in what happened in our world. So there was major changes in my outlook in visiting the world, watching how other people lived, and seeing how we lived here, and knowing the advantages we had that they didn't. If they were born poor, the likelihood they would live poor and they would die poor.
So I guess on this note, to some extent, along our travels in America alone, we have been hearing from a lot of different voices about this idea of hope, and why questions around how, or thoughts around people who have hope in America and what it can be, and then others that look at the generations of disparities and are like, why should we have hope in a system like this? Why tear it all down, right? And so with that, what is your source of hope? Because that's what it sounds like. You still have hope in the system to the point where you're willing to engage in voting.
Brother Christopher, you've hit the nail on the head. Hope is the undercurrent. It's the rock.
Yeah.
So I had a lady on my radio show, Everything Co-op, that said that co-ops, the business model of co-ops, it could be an employee co-op where the workers own the business. It could be a housing co-op, and that's how I learned about them. But co-ops help people to come out of poverty with dignity. And that whole dignity is about hope. Okay? When people don't have hope, and this is what I think has happened to people in West Virginia, like where I grew up in the coal mining area, white, black, or whatever, without hope, then they self-medicate, okay, which is drugs or whatever, and do all kinds of things that hurt self. With hope, you strive for better. And I have it that there's more hope in the U.S. than in most of the places that I've seen in the world. And that's why all of these people want to come here. I mean, why all of these people wanting to come through the borders, whatever those borders, southern borders or anywhere else? Because there's hope here that where people that come in, their children can get the education they need and live a better life than they have lived wherever they're coming from. And that's anywhere in the world, whether it's Haiti, Ukraine, Central America, South America. It just doesn't make any difference in the world. People look at us because we have hope more than anywhere else in the world that I have seen, unless you're born extremely well.
Even after the turmoil that existed during COVID and the deaths of innocent black men and women, and the elections of 2016, excuse me.
Well, what COVID did was it highlighted the problems of America. It highlighted that the essential workers did not get essential pay. They were not treated with the respect of their jobs, whether it was carrying the mail or the clerk in the store or the farmer out there in the farms tolling. It brought out the problems that are here. But when you look at all of the world, it's still better here. And we can improve. And the elections, why voting is so important. I mean, the election today between Biden and Trump, I do not like, and I've had to toy with the issue of Biden's stance in Gaza with the brown-skinned Palestinians being killed. But I compare him to Trump. I mean, I didn't want Trump when he first announced because I knew what kind of businessman he was. You just read his book. He said, make a deal and then you get out of it and you sue the person. He has no values.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And you look at his university, and he stole all of his money from these older folks. Everything he touches, it's a huge lie. So I just didn't like his value system, his value proposition. And when he got in the office, that's what he did. Mm-hmm. He showed he was interested in how he can improve the wealth for rich people, himself and his family. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The voting is so important.
I think that's one of the best ways I've heard it put in terms of the value proposition. Looking at the values of an individual to decide whether they're worthy of your vote. And to that point, I'm curious as to how you ultimately, and you have some elections on me, just a few, but curious, curious as to how you go about deciding who to vote for, not just in the national election, but also in the local and the state elections.
So, Brother Christopher, how old are you?
21.
So you're the age of my grandchildren. Okay.
Just little boy me. That's
I'm 76. I'll be 77 in October, mm-hmm. God willing. And so I got a couple of elections on you. You're right. Reason I like the co-op model, I'll go there first, mm-hmm. business model, as opposed to the capitalistic business model. The co-op business model have values and principles. And in that model, democracy is extremely, self-help, self-determination, democracy, equality, equity, and solidarity. It's always interesting, it starts off with helping self, mm-hmm. but in a solid standpoint where we help each other. And then there's the ethical values of honesty, openness, social responsibility, and caring for others. Mm-hmm. And that caring for others is what's not in the capitalistic model. Okay, Adam Smith had it, but it's not practiced. He had a whole book on it. Okay, mm-hmm. that we it's a natural tendency for humans to help each other. That doesn't show up in the capitalistic model because how one gets rewarded is through more and more and more and more money. And the question is how much is enough, but that's a whole another issue. So if you look at Trump and the people, particularly people that inherited their wealth, they're consistently and continuously looking at ways of how they can rape the environment, individual people, so they can get more. Mm. Okay? And that's not what happens in the co-op model. So when I looked at who am I going to vote for, is not whether they're a Democrat or a Republican. It's what's their value proposition. Mm. What do they stand for? Do they stand for, I used to think most Republicans are not for the people. Then I realized, they're for the wealthy people. All right? Mm. They're not for the everyday mass of people. It's for the top 3 wealthy people in the U.S. have more wealth than the bottom 50% of the people in the U.S. And if you look at the 1%ers, they have the wealth, the bottom, which too often we fall in, black and brown and indigenous people fall in. Mm-hmm. We don't have the ability to create wealth. And what I mean by wealth is you look at what you own, you subtract it from what you owe, and that gives you your net financial wealth. Mm-hmm. Your liabilities minus your assets give you your financial net worth. We don't have it. And before COVID, I haven't seen the numbers since COVID, but an average white family had a net worth of $170,000, and the average black family had $17,000, 1/10 of the average. Wow. That's average. Mm. Okay, not looking at that 1%ers, and they make this thing because the 1%ers are white. Yeah. Okay, but too often a black family, the head of the household of a black family is a black woman. Their net worth is a negative $6,000. So they owe more than they own. Wow. And so when you grow up with in a family whose net worth is negative, and that too often that's what happens when there's a single black woman as head of household. You don't have the money. You're constantly in stress. You may not have food. You may not have the basic needs that you have. And so what also happens is you have more health issues and you die younger. Okay. Voting is extremely important to health, wealth, and life. It's not just, okay, I want to pick the right person and this is American and we should vote and that's our responsibility. Oh, no, it's much more than that. If you look at our families, black families, brown families, Native Americans have got it terrible. Too often in the Navajo Nation, they don't even have water and bathrooms in their homes. 2024. In 1960, we had an outhouse. We didn't have a bathroom in our house. We had water and electricity. Mm-hmm. We were considered wealthy. We had water and electricity in our house. But today, too often. So voting and voting for the person that will do best for you is what's important, and that's what I look for. Who's going to do the most for the best for me and for my people?
And to that, in looking at the 2024 election, how critical would you say it is? And comparing it to other elections that have occurred in your time, how critical is it?
So I've said to you, I've had a few more elections than you. And I would say in my lifetime, and maybe since 1776 or since the beginning of our founding, this is the most critical. Okay? Mm-hmm. Because on one hand, with Donald Trump, everything suggests, what comes out of his mouth suggests he's a dictator.
Yeah.
He's a liar, he's a dictator, he's a womanizer. Mm-hmm. Okay? And I played football through the 2 years of college. We never talked about, as he did come out of Hollywood tapes, of grabbing women by their private parts. Yeah. That was not in our showers, in our...
Yeah.
Okay.
And say that again. It was not in our locker room talk.
No, that was not locker room talk.
Yeah.
You didn't hold women that way.
Yeah.
So when you look at his value proposition, and then you look at Biden and what Biden has done, Trump, the unemployment for Trump in 2020 for black people was 15.4%. Okay. Now, part of that was COVID, but the other part was his response to COVID. Okay. It's 3.2, 3.4% now. The lowest it's ever been for blacks in America. It's still got room to grow. It's still higher than whites, but it's so much better than under a Trump. So Biden's belief system, what he's worked for, all of that, he's so much better a candidate in Vernon Oakes' viewpoint. Mm-hmm. When you just look at what Trump has accomplished and what Biden has accomplished, Trump has accomplished with his tax, he's accomplished a lot for rich people. He accomplished a lot for himself and his children. Okay, and you look at Biden, I mean, they're going after Hunter Biden, they ought to be going after Jared. Okay.
That's actually funny. I'm curious though, to that point. One, emphasize I'm nonpartisan right now for the sake of this video, but I want to engage in like some of the critiques that are also received on the Biden end around age, and then also his response in Afghanistan and his response in the current Israel-Palestinian conflict with Gaza.
So, like I told you, I'll be 77. I'm 76. Biden's 81. Trump is 78. Mm-hmm. We're all in that world. Okay.
You move a little faster than President Biden.
And a year ago, I moved a lot faster. I had triple heart bypass surgery a year ago. And so a year ago, I moved a lot.
Bill Clinton had triple bypass too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I did yoga 5 days a week before the surgery. I walked a couple of days. I danced 1 or 2 days a week. I'd go to the clubs and dance, and it was strictly to dance. Okay, I used to go to pick up, but now it was strictly to dance. So
I don't know anything about
I know
that.
You're too young. I got it, bro. Too young. Okay. So age, I don't have an issue with age, and if I had an issue with age, I'd have it with Trump and Biden, and me. Okay. So. But you look at you look at how Biden reacted at the last debate. I had my head down from the time he walked out. Okay.
Yeah.
And if you looked at next day when he was, I forgot where he was at, but he was alive. And I said, why couldn't you have done it the night before?
Yeah. Okay.
So you got a cold, but something doesn't fit right there. But I don't have any problem with age. And if I had a problem with age, I'd have it with Trump and with Biden.
And if I can go into this just more specifically, just because I'm curious as to your thoughts on it. When you hear things being said about the Democratic National Convention sort of asking Biden to step down and for someone else to take the lead, what do you say on that? And then I'm gonna zoom out after.
Well, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
I throughout Biden's career, people have underrated him. Okay, so this isn't anything new. I'm still supporting him. My only issue is I don't like America's helping Netanyahu kill all those Palestinians.
Yeah.
That's my biggest complaint. It's not about age. And I think this will settle down and people will be for Biden. I don't think it's going to go. He's not leaving. Okay. It would have to be probably a major vote or something to get him out. And I don't think that's going to happen. So I'm for Biden. I'm not for them saying that he needs to leave. And the question was, who would you put up against Trump at this? Is it 4 months out in November?
Yeah. And then there's isn't the convention, what is it, in July or August or something like that?
I think it's
in
July.
Chicago. Yeah, July. Yeah. And so a lot of our RV travels, specifically with eligible youth voters, we've heard a lot about how the people in place aren't really pushing for issues that affect young adults. And that sort of also goes to this idea of these individuals in public office are too old. They are not in touch with what is going on in the 18-year-old's mind or the 24-year-old's mind or the 25-year-old's mind, something like that. Even going into 33, though, that's crossing different waters.
I know when I was your age, anybody over 40 you couldn't trust. Okay, that was the slang.
So I say all that to say, what do you do or what can you say to encourage youth voters? When we're looking at that, we see those who are far from our age.
So let me ask you a question first. What are the issues for folks between that 18 and 33-year-old? What's their issues that you saw as you traveled?
I think that a lot of the issues, for one, and this is probably the bigger one, and it's around people like to see themselves in the candidates that are representing them. That is a huge one, I think. When I look at Congress, I want to see some black people, because I'm a black man. I want to see some black men, particularly, that I can look up to and that could be a mentor. So one, I guess, seeing someone like Hakeem Jeffries, and he's not too old, or Cory Booker, like, that's good to see. I think that's the first thing. Two, there's also things around energy and the excitement around change. I think that the younger generations are excited about trying new things, whereas you see that, and this is a conflict that you find in a lot of different facets of life, whether it be in the church in particular, or just organizations in general. The rift between the older generation and the newer generation. I think that a lot of individuals are excited about trying something new, and then those who've been there for a while are like, "Well, we've always done it this way. You gotta play it even. You gotta."
Or we tried that in 1942.
Yeah. I mean, and to that point, this RV road trip, the obstacles have been almost insurmountable. I mean, it's a huge headache in saying, "Oh, we've never done something like this. This, that, and the third that's possible. Maybe we should just pare it back. We should wait. Young people don't want to wait. Let's make it happen." And so that's a big thing. And then also on the road, we've heard a lot of different issues, obviously, about abortion and the right to privacy, which was overturned. And then education access, which is another big one. I'm ranting, but yeah, to answer your question.
So when I was your age, it was the same issue with older people, is that you couldn't trust anybody over 40. They didn't want change, and whatever they wanted to go slow. Mm-hmm. We wanted fast. We wanted now. We wanted immediate.
Yeah.
So I got it, and it hasn't changed. I've changed in terms of I've gotten older. Mm-hmm. I cannot look like I used to look. I would love to.
Well, okay. They offer surgery.
Well, then if you look at abortion, Trump is proud that he overturned it. That he put in justices, 3 of them that helped to overturn Roe versus Wade. Mm-hmm. If you look at Biden, he's all for women making their choice, having control over their body. Mm-hmm. So it's easy for me on that one for Biden versus Trump, and that's what younger people want. That's what I wanted when I was your age. Mm-hmm. 50 years ago, it changed. Mm-hmm. So. And then you talk about climate change. Climate change is critical. And when I heard Trump says it doesn't exist, it was like crazy to me. Mm-hmm. I majored undergrad in math and chemistry. Science is extremely important. I taught science for a while, but I taught math more, and then later marketing. But the science is there. Climate change is here. And if we don't do something about it, the planet will not exist. Mm. For my grandchildren, I have 2 great, what is it going to be like for them? What is it going to be like for you 50 years from now, when you're my age? Mm. What is this planet going to look like? And you see these rich people are making all these satellites, they're ready to leave. They're trying to be prepared.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
Yeah.
They're prepared to leave Earth after they have, through capitalism, extracted whatever they need to extract to make the massive amounts of money, and then leave the earth all messed up, so that the
same story, different way, like the scramble for Africa. Extracted the material, kept on moving.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but there's all kinds of issues. Affordable housing. Mm. I would imagine, because that's on everybody's mind. I would imagine it's on young people's mind, particularly coming out of college, looking around. Health care, critical. Obamacare, Trump and the Republicans have tried a dozen times or so to try to repeal it, and they haven't been able to. Mm-hmm. Because people need it, want it, like it. So health care is extremely important. The number one reason people go into bankruptcy is because of health care, the cost of medical treatment. Mm. Number one reason, health care. Number one reason for divorce is finances. Health care, finances, all of this stuff that we're talking about creates all havoc, creates stress, causes people to live a life where they don't have the quality of life they could have if they had the finances and the resources, and it leads to early death. So all of this stuff fits. Who you vote for matters. Okay, Black Lives Matter, yes. Who you vote for matters for Black lives.
Are there any final thoughts you would like to leave?
Well, I think everybody needs to decide who they want to vote for and then vote.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to decide who they want to vote for and vote. And there's all kinds of ways of getting that information. But make that decision and get out and vote. And if you need help getting to the polls, if you need help learning about it, there are people around and processes around to help you to understand at the county level, at the city level, at the state level. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they're more important than at the presidential level and the Senate and the House level. The mayors and governors are extremely powerful and extremely important. So at every level, decide who you want to vote for and vote.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Oakes. I really appreciate it. Had a fun time.